Hello and welcome to the Tea Party Howdy channel. Okay, well, this is really interesting. It turns out that the leftist elitists are starting to recognize they're leftist and elitist, and that they got that way through their indoctrination farms called colleges and universities. Let's see the evidence. 2020 exit polls. As the racial gap closes, the Democrat-Republican education gap widens. Put in English terms instead of leftist elitist terms, 2020 exit polls. As the racial grip that the Democrats held forever over minorities is breaking apart, and they're waking up to the fact that y'all ain't done nothing for me no matter how long I've voted for you. Don't worry. The Democrat-Republican indoctrination gap is widening and doing just fine. Our indoctrination factories were, 95% of college professors and instructors tilt to the left? And if you argue, you stand the chance of having your grade diminished by arguing with these lefty wackos? Those same indoctrination factors. The same indoctrination factors, like how many Antifa people have been shown to be from these elitist colleges or just standard colleges? How many of the BLM marchers turned out to be college graduates? Yeah, what a coinkydink. I don't think so. Democrats are right to be celebrating Joe Biden presidency. Really? Why? Because they like to have a senile old man who's already feeble and is going to be older than Ronald Reagan was when he left, when Biden goes in, and Reagan was already dealing with senility issues when he was leaving, and Biden's just going in. You remember that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade, where you watch that guy drink from the glass and then he just gets ancient and old and dissolves? Yeah, the one that looks just like Biden. Yeah, that one. Remember what the old knight said to Indy and the woman? He said he chose poorly. Well, I wonder if that knight's going to be looking at America as we watch that old man deteriorate before our eyes at almost the same amount of speed and go, America, you chose poorly. Just a thought. Just wondering. Let's see. Democrats are right to be celebrating Joe Biden presidency. Hurry while you can before Harris takes over. But the details of his win should worry them. In particular, President Donald J. Trump increased his vote share in once solidly Democratic communities like Starr County, Texas, Robson County, North Carolina, and from traditional Democratic groups like Mexican Americans. Did he? Did he really? Wonder why. What connects all these different communities? I'll have fewer college graduates. They didn't go to the indoctrination farms, and the indoctrination farms K through 12 wasn't enough to solidify it once they got a job and seen that FICA was taking all their money. Who is this evil FICA? Indicating that while the racial gap is decreasing, that's right. No more stronghold by the lefties on minorities. They've had enough. They've finally said, excuse me, but we've been voting for you for a very long time, and we got Jack, and we don't like Jack. We're looking more at Jill these days. The education gap is solidifying. The indoctrination farms are working just as we planned. and becoming multiracial. This means Democrats in numbers and attitude continued its evolution into the party of, oh, listen to this guy pat himself on the back, highly educated college graduated, while the Republicans, despite having a long way to go, shifted towards a more racially diverse coalition of non-graduates. Yeah, disgusting. Why bother voting? He says that he talks to these regular folks in these other places that didn't go to college, and they're just like, what's the point in voting? Because it doesn't change anything anyways. Well, they changed their mind after Donald J. Trump came in there, because Donald J. Trump changed it, and that's in this article too. My book, Dignity, focused on those communities without college graduates, with both rural and urban, both majority white, like Portsmouth, Ohio, and highly black. Now, here's the deal where they're using that AP thing where they use black as capital and white as little. Ain't that something? And he likes to think he's educated. Or Latino, like rural Mississippi or Texas. Places ignored by the media, except for when something bad happens, like when a college opens up and starts polluting their minds. making them march on the streets for anti-American concepts. Yeah, stuff like that. What I found was decent, hard-working people dealing with loss of good jobs and filling with drugs. Really? Gee, no stereotypes there. I also found an overwhelming sense of frustration, especially towards DC. Yeah, that they couldn't get anything done. Okay, so then he goes on to say that the Trumpers were like, dude, something's actually happening. See, look at this. I have heard the attitude all over the country, in big towns and small towns, in red states and blue states, from here it is, capital B, blacks, capital M, Mexicans, capital A, Americans, little bitty W, whites, and and he thinks he's educated. Dude, people just love to play with words, and some of those people are really stupid. This election, some of those people, yes, he said those people, who usually don't vote, did vote, and many, surprisingly, chose Trump. Oh, called them those people. We'll see how that works out for you. How can it be that hard-working people who are scrambling to pay their bills, many of them new immigrants, chose to vote for an Ivy League billionaire? I didn't know Trump was Ivy League. Learn something new every day. Who wants to limit immigration? Because how we think about politics and voting is all wrong. Oh, now he's just going to tear into them and call them really stupid, and then he's going to say they're not really stupid. Gonna love this. The details of politics and policy that political pundits on TV fight over are lost on most Americans. Well, they're lost on most pundits considering they've been getting it wrong for over 10 years now. He seems to ignore that. Not because they're too stupid, he'll take that back in just a minute, to understand them, but because they're too busy to focus on something that rarely affects them. Yeah, well, guess what? The pundits do focus on it like crazy, and they keep getting it wrong. That seems to be completely acceptable in this dude's life. So, who they support is more about which social group to join. Is it really? I wonder what he bases it on. Because he's going to blather his opinion, which is fine. It's an opinion piece. He does not do anything to back it up. It's now more about whose supporters would they rather hang out with at a bar. I think that applies more to you, Mr. Chris Arnon, than it does to anybody else. Because that's how your ilk works. Because in your ilk says, we're making a list. We're checking it twice. We're gonna see if you supported Trump once or twice. AOC is coming to town. She'll make sure you don't get a job. She'll make sure you never work again. So you better vote left for goodness sake. Yeah, something like that. It's more about whose supporters would they rather hang out with at a bar, not what policies they want. Really? You're just making it up, dude. Like everybody else in your ilk, you're just making it up. In the last few decades, Democrats have shifted towards being the party of the highly educated. Highly, darling. Not just more educated. No. Highly educated. They don't know jack. They resemble college professors in how they talk to voters and how they present themselves, and consequently, how they are viewed by many Americans. While Trump has shifted the GOP towards being a party that maybe, just maybe, might get who they are. Yeah, they're the ones that actually want jobs, want to make money, and not have the government steal it and tell them what to do every single second of their life. That's why 72 million voted for Trump. It's kind of a lot. While Democrats can sound too much like wonks, Trump talks their language in simple... Oh, remember he said they weren't stupid. He said they weren't stupid. Now he says Trump talks their language in simple, often blunt terms that avoids details about policy, but gets a few big things right, like understanding the frustration with D.C. Oh, no. Didn't we just hear all through the Biden election that, no, we want things to go back to normal? I always found that interesting. You mean normal equals the left running everything? Well, yeah, hello. Trump also gets the smaller things right, that college professors, also known as indoctrinators, and journalists, also known as hopeful indoctrinators, in D.C. find unimportant and embarrassing, but really matters in how people view politics, like celebrating a big win with a big spread from McDonald's, or hugging the United States flag. These are the two things that this reporter finds remarkable and worth pointing to show that these people he said aren't stupid are stupid. Those are the two things out of Trump's presidency that he thinks Americans are hanging on to. That it has nothing to do with the fact that he got the unemployment rate lower in every demographic to historical lows. No, he doesn't ever point to that. It doesn't point to the fact that he had, 3 or more massive peace deals signed in the last few months. No, he never mentions that. It doesn't mention that Trump was attacked from the very beginning with Russia, from Chris Arnande and his ilk, completely falsely. No, he doesn't get into any of that. No, what he thinks that righty America is hanging on to, or even neutral America is hanging on to, is a big spread from McDonald's or hugging the United States flag. Really? That's why we love him? I don't think so. I mean, it's all good, but yet no. This is how unbelievably shallow this highly educated elite fellow is, that's what he turns to. Those are the things that get in his craw and have been in his craw so long that he's digging it out now in November after the election ended in voting, but they're still fighting. They believe in faith, family, and the flag, and the American dream, and are not embarrassed about that. Unlike the highly educated elite really are. I titled my book Dignity because that's what I found every American wants. Really? You had to go looking to find out that every American wants dignity. Surprise, surprise. You can find that in any country with any group of people. Hey, Mr. Highly Educated and Highly Elite, you missed that. Everybody wants dignity. Now look at this. You're going to love this. I titled my book Dignity because that is what I found every American wants. Now, that's what it says, now matter how much educated they have or how poor they are. So Mr. Highly Educated that names his book Dignity because only Americans want dignity, it turns out, doesn't even know how to spell no. Doesn't even know how to edit his work. Because this is supposed to say, oh, excuse me, he was going for K-N-O-W, but it's supposed to be an O. I titled my book Dignity because that's what I found every American wants. Now matter how much education. Now how matter it. So much for your high education, Mr. Chris Arande. Well done indeed, sir. Expose yourself all the way to the near last paragraph. Now matter how much, Chris. You get in here right now. I mean right now. I don't know how to talk to you. Yet, giving people dignity means not only listening to them, but also not talking down to them. Thank you for pointing that out. Who knew? Thank God you wrote that down so all of us ignorants could figure it out. It means understanding and respecting who they really are, rather than assuming you know what is best for them because you read about them in a study somewhere. Yeah, and did that study happen to mention that they go gaga over McDonald's being given to college sports athletes, and that they go gaga over somebody hugging a flag? Because that's where you're going to find that kind of material. If Democrats want to be the working class party, that is the team they need to remember to be. You see, they have to remember it. And the only reason they have to remember is because clearly they have forgotten it because they're not participating in it. You don't forget in what you're doing. If you are in the working class party, you don't wake up in the morning and forget it. You don't go, I'm feeling so rich today, I think I'm going to go to the Bahamas. Oh, and I'll take the Learjet this day because I'm just tired of taking the cruise liner that I own. Yeah, no, they don't forget. But Chris Arnande wants to remind them, you must remember late in December who you are. Yeah. And they wonder why they lost. They didn't lose. Biden won. Wink, wink. That's why everybody on down ballot won. But the guy at the top didn't win. We'll see about that too. It's just sad how they look at Americans. I have a neighbor who went to college for oodles of years. I'll make a confession. I went to college for oodles of years. And us two oodlers of college used Tim Pool for a lot of our resources for getting the unfiltered, I guess news would just be the quickest way to say it. And I mentioned to him, I go, isn't it crazy that here we are, and we're older than Tim Pool, to say the least, and in both cases, we're looking at a guy who's in his early 30s and quit school after 8th grade so he could skateboard, and that's who we turn to. Because you know what? We know where the good stuff is. Tim works really hard. Yeah, he dropped out in 8th grade, but you know what? He didn't stop learning. He definitely kept going. He didn't get indoctrinated. He's still out there. He's making waves. He's making motion. He's doing it. While this guy is running around going, I can't believe those people like a guy who buys McDonald's spread. And even worse than that, he hugs the flag in public. Ooh. It's very important that in our future, if not our present, I would prefer our present, that every election in the United States of America is always met with an audit. This notion and all of this fraud that has been shown to be, let's see, there are people coming forward with lots of claims, including affidavits and other examples. The fact that it's not systemic, well, define system. You're running out there saying we have systemic racism. With what evidence? To which I always counter, well, if it is systemic racism, which party put it there? Which party's in charge of all those institutions? That's fun to ponder. The same party that's instituted all of these crazy election things. And I'll tell you one thing before we go. In Los Angeles County, until the primary election that occurred right before this general election, we voted with ink stampers. We had regular ballots, and then you'd do this, you'd flip the hardcover book and in the voting booth, and then you had this special marker that when you push it, it makes like a bingo ink blot. Okay? We got rid of those ink blot stampers that allowed us to make fun of Florida when they had the hanging chads, because there's no such thing as a hanging ink blot. It's either blotted or it's not. And of course, you could always look and verify, and most of us did, I would assume. I know I did. Nonetheless, we got rid of ink blots and replaced them with computer voting. And when the primaries occurred, and it was the first time to use them, the system went down. The computer went down. Wait a minute. Why are these computers hooked up to an internet system? Why are they going down from an internet? Why is a voting computer hooked up to the internet to begin with? Secondly, this is what I say to you. It's what I say to the poll workers. This is what I say to anybody when I talk to them about this. We replaced ink blots that don't care about the internet being on or off. We replaced ink blots with an unbelievably easy to hack system. I know this because local channel KTLA Channel 5 did studies and found out it was hackable. And they did hack it successfully. So we replaced ink blots with a hackable system, with a system that's on the internet. We replaced ink blots with something that if there's a power out, let's not forget this is California, where going green does mean going dark. For all you states that haven't done it yet, you want to go green, you're going to go dark. You get the rolling brownouts, you get the rolling blackouts. Go green, go dark. That's what that equals. So if we have the blackouts, we can't vote then. And again, the ink doesn't care. The ink blots don't care. So why would LA County move from a superior system that can't be hacked, doesn't care about electricity, and doesn't care about the internet being up or down, to one that does? There's only one reason you move from an unhackable system that doesn't care about the internet and doesn't care about electricity to one that does. And you know the reason the same as I do, which is why I will proclaim every election in America needs to have an audit every single time. Carl Benjamin, formerly known as Akkad, Sargon of Akkad, he's doing this new thing called Lotus Eaters. And I don't know why. But anyways, he's doing this new thing. I don't know why they chose the name. And they were talking about how they do it in the UK. And what he said was, they have the people from the different parties standing right next to each other, looking at the ballots, and then making one pile for the one winner and one pile for the other winner. And, okay, from voter, however you want to describe it. Then they take those two piles when they're all done, and they put the piles into a counting machine, not a voting machine. And they just, and it gives the count. And that's how they do it over there. And he said they do it in a complete wide open. There is no shenanigans that can happen easily because it's so very, very, very visible. We don't do anything like that in America. In Detroit, they put boards on the windows to make sure that you couldn't see them count. In Pennsylvania, the Democrats demanded that the Republican counters, observers, had to be 100 feet away. Now, I've also heard 100 yards, so I don't know which one's true. I'm going to go with feet, because 100 yards is crazy. 100 feet's crazy, too, but 100 yards is like, no, that's like the next building over. Now, the court said, no, you have to let them within 6 feet. The UK, we left them for a reason. But there are certain things that they do that make a lot more sense than what we're doing. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the future.